China Sea News. US and Japan join forces in tense territorial row with China. In response, the US and Japan have joined forces to address the situation. The row centers around a disputed and uninhabited group of islands known by Japan as the Senkaku Islands, though China refers to them as the Diaoyu Islands. US military official Lieutenant General Kevin Schneider confirmed Japan had backing from the US in an interview this week. Mr. Schneider, who is also head of US Forces Japan, said, "The United States is 100% absolutely steadfast in its commitment to help the government of Japan with the situation in the Senkakus. That is 365 days a year, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week." He suggested Chinese ships were becoming more bold in their activities in the area, saying, "They would go in and out a couple of times a month, and now we are seeing them basically park and truly challenge Japan's administration." According to analysts, the islands are of strategic importance because they are close to shipping lanes. They are also popular for fishing, and it is believed they may lie near to oil reserves. Japan's relationship with the islands goes back to the 19th century, but their most recent claim of ownership arises from the Okinawa Reversion Agreement in 1971. Under this agreement, the US granted Japan ownership of the islands, which Japan had previously handed over after World War II. He added the US would be offering Japan surveillance assistance to figure out exactly what's going on in the water in and around the Senkaku. China responded to Mr. Schneider's statements, claiming it has an inherent right to patrol the area. Wang Wenbin, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesman, said at a press briefing, "We hope that relevant parties will do something helpful to maintain regional peace and stability and avoid words and deeds that are not conducive to regional peace and stability." Tensions have also been simmering in the South China Sea. Earlier this month, US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo blasted China's claims to offshore resources in the area as completely unlawful. He said the nation had engaged in a campaign of bullying to control such resources. Mr. Pompeo said, "The world will not allow Beijing to treat the South China Sea as its maritime empire." In response, China accused the US of flexing muscles, stirring up tension and inciting confrontation in the region. It is generally reported China lays claim to around 90% of the South China Sea, leading to disputes. As tensions between Taiwan and China continue to escalate, satellite images reportedly show amphibious armored vehicles and mobile missile launchers massing at military bases near the island nation. Though Taiwan, a country of 25 million people, is happy as an independent democracy, Beijing insists it is a breakaway province and inviolate Chinese territory, repeatedly stating it will use force to bring the island back under China's control. Now the images have shown the People's Liberation Army, PLA, moving the military vehicles into the Eastern Theater Command on China's coastal cities across the strait from Taiwan, with missile launchers well within range to hit any targets in Taiwan. "We make no promise to abandon the use of force and retain the option of taking all necessary measures," Chinese leader Xi Jinping said in a recent speech. Under its one country, two systems policy, Beijing insists Taiwan is part of its sovereign mandate. Which is why its so-called wolf warrior diplomats have reacted with outrage at news this week that the US Health Secretary will visit the island to discuss its success in combating the COVID-19 pandemic. Meanwhile, Chinese fighters and bombers have been engaged in a series of combat readiness exercises over the disputed South China Sea, with combat aircraft and naval vessels observed visiting illegal island fortresses in the Spratly Islands. Tension reaching boiling point. The Type 05 amphibious armored vehicles are designed to deliver troops from the sea across a beachhead battlefield. The PLA are also deploying the powerful Type PCL-191 multiple launch rocket systems to the ground forces of the Eastern Theater Command, Canwa Asian magazine defense editor Andre Chang writes. These have a range of some 350 kilometers. The Taiwan Strait is just 180 kilometers across. The PCL-191 rocket launchers are able to destroy all military bases and government buildings on the island accurately. Meanwhile, Taiwan has responded by sending a company of about 200 Marines to reinforce the Pratas Islands National Marine Park in the South China Sea, 445 kilometers from Taiwan and 300 kilometers from China. The Marines left for the Pratas about a week ago and will remain there on a short-term, rather than a long-term basis, a military source told the South China Morning Post. US gets involved. The increase in Chinese military activity has also been met with a response by the United States. Its surveillance aircraft have stepped up the extent and frequency of their activity in and around Taiwan, closely monitoring Beijing's forces. Bomber movements are being observed. Submarines are being tracked. Activity on and around island fortresses are being watched. A Chinese state university think tank reports 67 US reconnaissance aircraft had been detected in the area in July. This was almost twice that seen in previous months. The risk of a military clash exists, and we should be alert to it, Beijing Institute of International Relations professor Li Haidong said. There is a high possibility that the US will further escalate its conflict with China before the election, Professor Li said, noting that US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo's call for the free world to unite against China implies that once the US launches military action against China, many countries will stand with it. Spratly surge. This week, Chinese state media has lauded a 10-hour flight by 6 of its Su-30 MKK fighter jets from the mainland to Subi Reef in the Spratly Islands. There they joined 2 Chinese Navy warships, a Type 054A frigate and a Type 056 corvette. These were photographed anchored in Mischief Reef's protected lagoon. The reef, unilaterally occupied by Beijing before being transformed into an artificial island fortress, is one of the largest features of the Spratly Islands, judged by the UN to fall far outside Chinese territorial control. Touted as an air-sea rescue facility, it features a military-grade 3 km runway, armored hangars, communications arrays, radars and weapons towers. Philippines President Rodrigo Duterte has all but surrendered his nation's claim to the traditional fishing grounds, saying last week, "China is claiming it, we are claiming it. China has the arms, we do not have it. So, it's simple as that. They are in possession of the property. So what can we do? We have to go to war. And I cannot afford it. Maybe some other president can. But I cannot." Military analysts have noted that the 10-hour flight by the Chinese fighters to Subi Reef was unnecessary. At its cruising speed, the Su-30 needs only 3 hours to cover the distances they can fly at speeds of up to 2,100 km per hour, with a horizontal flying speed of 1,400 km per hour. The math on a 10-hour trip doesn't make sense, China Aerospace Studies Institute Director Brendan Mulvaney told Radio Free Asia. It's about 2,100 kilometers from Changsha, south-central China, to the Spratlys, which should only take 2 to 3 hours at